quiet when those kids left.
Yeah, right.
But,
We're good, Brian. We're broadcasting. I'm live here.
another new presentation that has 3 videos. It's just much more. No worries.
I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone please stand and join me in the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Hernandez. Here. Mrs. Gaddy.
Here.
Mr. Kraus is absent tonight. Mr. Fever. Here. Mr. Masiello.
Here.
Mrs. Romano.
Here.
And Mrs. Aguirre.
Here. Board member reports?
Yes. Couple items, Mrs. Romano. We thank our PTA Council for hosting a fantastic scholarship dinner dance. 328 guests attended it. The PTA Council selected some very well-deserving honorees representing all our schools. Congratulations to all honorees, and great job, Mrs. Manini and the PTA Council. Great job. Mr. Masiello, I know enjoyed it very much. He had 2 dinners. So I usually don't kiss and tell, but this one I do. Yes. Yeah, that's true. Congratulations. I left out last year, I believe there was over $13,000 in scholarships given out by the PTA. This year, we might be able to exceed that. It's a nice turnout. Congratulations to the North Rockland cheerleading team on winning their 2nd national title within the last 4 years. We are very proud of their remarkable achievement. We congratulate all elementary school students who recently received character recognition awards. I have a flyer, so flyers up here, if anyone wants. ARP, which I became a member of this past June, is offering free income tax preparation on Wednesdays at North High School, room 304. You can call 1-888-AARP now for further details. And like I said, anyone interested, I have flyers here. On Monday, February 26, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. at the Fieldstone Auditorium. The Fieldstone Middle School PTA is sponsoring vaping. What parents should know: there will be speakers from the Rockland Council on Alcoholism and Drug Dependence. There's another related item coming up on Wednesday, March 21st at North Rockland at 7 p.m. The Perfect Storm, a prescription drug and heroin epidemic. As we know, that's killing a lot of our communities and a lot of families suffering a lot of deaths from it as well. Vital information every parent should know. Speakers will include District Attorney Zugerbees. I believe there'll be representatives from the sheriff's departments and other speakers at that presentation. On Friday, March 23rd at 6:30 p.m., the North Rockland High School PTA will be hosting Pocketbook Bingo. Please visit the North Rockland High School website for further details. And for the students, all North Rockland schools will be closed from Monday, February 19th through Friday, February 23rd for winter recess. A reminder, all the schools have their own respective websites. The North Rockland Central School District, a lot of the items here that are presented, if you go on the main website of the school district, you'll see Board of Education there, these budget presentation minutes and everything from past meetings, you're able to find there. We're also on Facebook and Twitter, so there's various forms of information. That's all I have, Mr. Romano.
I would just like to add a couple of things. I just would like people to know that Mrs. Romano, Mrs. Zugerbe, myself, and Mrs. Eckert traveled last weekend to Washington, D.C. to lobby on the federal level on behalf of public education. The news out of the federal government was somewhat mixed. At least we knew the day before that Senator Schumer and Senator McConnell had worked out a budget, and the budget has passed. And that was last year's budget. And there's an increase in all spending. What we're interested in is the non-defense spending. And there was an increase in non-defense spending. So we have to now wait and see how the details will shake out. Then this past weekend, Mrs. Romano, Mrs. Zugerbe, and myself were in Albany. We came home yesterday, once again making the rounds on behalf of our public school children. But there is one item that I'm particularly concerned about. The governor, in his infinite wisdom, has proposed a cap on transportation aid statewide and on BOCES and building aid statewide. How he sees this working is that, okay, now they are reimbursable expenses and we are in a payment lag currently. What we spent last year, the state is supposed to give us our portion of the reimbursement. Going forward, what he wants to do is say, you spend whatever you're going to spend, and we're only going to increase the number by 2% and spread that out across the state of New York. So how does that affect us? Transportation costs goes up all the time for every district in every community in this state. There are 700 school districts. We've seen our transportation costs rise over the years, despite our best effort of keeping them as level and reconfiguring our runs as many times as we can. If we can no longer count on the reimbursable amount, what does that do? That pushes that cost to the taxpayers, and in our case, increases our deficit. How does it affect you regarding BOCES? Well, many of you know that BOCES has undertaken a capital improvement project where they are revising and revamping the pool for the Jesse Kaplan School students, which are our most severely disabled student population. And water therapy is an integral part of what they are given. We, through the BOCES board, Mrs. Sotheby and I both sit on the BOCES board, have done a really good job of putting money in a reserve fund to pay for these capital improvement projects, which was at no cost to the taxpayers when they approved it last fall. Now, that reimbursement could be up in the air for the years going forward. There are 8 component school districts because there are 8 districts in Rockland County that fund BOCES. How can that hit your pocketbook? 2% building BOCES reimbursement aid capped across the state. There's BOCES that are all across the state of New York. If everybody's doing something, we don't know what we're going to see in reimbursement. Therefore, BOCES can come back to the 8 component school districts and say, well, guess what? They're not giving us the money and we all have to divvy up the bill. The same thing with building aid. As you know, we passed a bond, thank you all, we appreciated that a year or 2 ago, based on projections from the state as to what we were going to get reimbursed. Well, now they don't want to do that anymore. Now they want to say they don't care that you passed a bond. Going forward, we're only going to give 2% increase in building aid and you'll just get less. This cannot stay. There is a theory that it is a political ploy to keep us from discussing the foundation aid. Folks, we need to keep an eye on this because budget bills pass fast and furious the closer the April 1st deadline gets. You have to make your voice heard. We cannot let this stand because there is no way of us as a board trying to do the responsible thing for you as a taxpayer if we have no idea where our reimbursement aid is going to be. So we have to stay on top of this. I ask your help with PTA. We need to stay on top of this, and we'll do our best to push out as much information as we can at the time. Thank you.
I just wanted to follow up with something, particularly for everyone out there, for administration too. When I was meeting with, because I represent Rockland, Westchester, and Putnam, when I was meeting with the Westchester representatives, they were saying that the law that had been passed years ago that allowed us to use our bus runs as far as capacity, usage rather than capacity, sunsets in 2019. So if something is not done, we're going to have to go back to planning bus routes as far as capacity goes rather than usage. And the representative over there was saying most people really don't understand that it's ending in 2019 if something doesn't happen. So I'll get you the bill numbers, but there's one in the Assembly and one in the Senate. But he's saying that he's not getting a whole lot of support even from his colleagues because they don't really see the need for it. But I think that would affect us significantly, wouldn't you think, if we have to go back to planning bus routes based upon capacity rather than what we use? I think it's everybody's problem, so I'll get you that and hopefully we can, get our legislators on board. They did say they work as a region, and I was surprised to notice that one of the people, when I went over there, and he was asking where all the board members were, so I didn't want to say I wasn't from Westchester, so I just said I represent the New York State School Boards Association. And he said, well, you must be on the board. And I said, well, yeah, but I'm in Rockland. He said, I know, but you must be on the school board there. And I said, yes, I'm on North Rockland. And he said, oh, he said, that's the one with the Vermont. So he knew all about it. He was well informed from our legislators. So they're trying to work as a region, so I give them credit for that. But I think we need to let them know that we wouldn't be happy if that sunset. His bill will make it permanent. So that's what he's looking for support. Thanks.
Okay, good evening. Moving ahead, you'll see in the back, I hope some of you, I've seen some people taking them. We do have flyers for both of those events that Rich mentioned, one of them being the March 21st opioid actually conference, and the other one being something that you're going to experience tonight, which is our high school musical. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Banky to introduce the piece that we're going to see tonight. And hopefully you'll take the flyer and go see the whole play. Our students are so amazingly talented every year. I just think it gets better and better every year, and they never disappoint, and you think you're sitting on Broadway. The talent that's in that high school is just amazing, and I think you'll concur when you hear what you're about to hear tonight.
Hello. Hi. So I am Jennifer Banky. I am the director for the musical at the high school. We are doing the Pajama Game this year. It is a 1950s feel-good romp, all about management and labor, and there's a love story involved too. But we know a little bit about the show itself. It opens Friday, March 9th, and runs March 9th, March 10th, then the following week, March 13th, 15th, 16th, and 17th. Oh my gosh, that was really bad. All shows are at 7:30 on Thursday, March 15th. It's a 2-for-1 students and seniors night. It's a lot of fun. The kids have been having a lot of fun learning it. We are going to perform a song called Once a Year Day. In the course of the first act, we meet Babe and Sid, who are the main female and male lead characters, and they end up falling in love. And they all go to the company picnic. Sleep Tight Pajama Factory is where they all work, and Sid is on the management side, and Babe is on the labor side. And they have fallen in love, and this is kind of their coming out party as a new couple, and everybody's having a lot of fun. So we hope you enjoy Once a Year Day.
Come here, Catherine.
Where are we going?
Babe and Sid are going on a walk together. The new policy. Gee, baby, you're terrific.
You're not so bad yourself.
This is my once a year day. Once a year day. Felt the morning sun and knew that this was my once a year day. Once a year day. Even got a kiss from you. I feel like hopping up and down like a kangaroo. Jumping fences, climbing trees. What pleases me is what I'll do.
This is our once a year day, once a year day. Everyone's entitled to be wild, be a child, be a goof, raise a roof. Once a year. This is our once a year day, once a year day. Once a year we're jumping fences. This is our once a year day, once a year day. Once a year we lose our senses.
Look at Charlie up a tree, kissing Katie dear. Charlie's wife is mad as hell.
Oh well, it happens once a year, and this is that. Once a year day, once a year day. Everyone's entitled to be wild, be a child, be a goof, raise a roof. Once a year.
Look at Papa Walter Bush, 92 today. Running off with Sadie Lee.
He's headed for that pile of hay. 'Cause this is once a year day, once a year day. Everyone's entitled to be wild, be a child, be a goof, raise a roof. Once a year. This is our once a year day, once a year day. Everyone's entitled to be wild.
Thank you again for taking time out of your practice and for enlightening our night tonight. Thank you. And now it gives me great pleasure to introduce our music coordinator, Virginia Stellato, and she'll tell us a little bit about a recognition that we're about to do tonight. And some of our very special and very talented music students, and with us tonight also, John Bjorkman, North Rockland High School Orchestra Director.
Thank you, Mrs. Eckert. Thank you, Mr. James, for the mic stand. Ms. Santilla was here also tonight. She was on stage with Ashley Chan playing piano. Fantastic job. Mr. Mr. McHugh sends his regrets. One of his children has their own music concert tonight, so he's watching his child perform. We're here tonight to recognize our senior all-county music students. Those are the students in 10th, 11th, and 12th grade who were selected to all-state, area all-state, and senior all-county. In order to get into these ensembles, they need to have performed a NISMA solo, and they need to have done it very, 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 very well. And this goes beyond, I know most people are familiar with the sports recognition at the county and the state level where you have your first team for baseball and your second all-county team for lacrosse and stuff like that. This kind of goes beyond that because our music students not only get recommended for this, but they actually perform. So imagine if you had like your baseball, starting 9 and secondary 9 actually playing a game against each other. This is what our kids have done. So we're starting first with our area all-state and senior all-county orchestra students. Our orchestra students in area all-state were Ashley Chan, you heard her on piano on stage, Maria Schroback, Robert Fallon, Grant Figueroa, who you just heard sing by himself on stage, Heather Hammond, Rita Kohut, Amber Kuhn, Kayla Leonard, Sanjana Mala, and Alexandra Mena Jimenez. Congratulations to all of you for area all-state orchestra. And our senior all-county orchestra students were Melody Lynn, Lucas Nugent, Isabella Palomaro, Vanessa Safar, and Nicholas Simeone. In area all-state chorus and senior all-county treble chorus, we had Chinwe Azilo, Natasha Fallon, Caitlin Orris, Marilise Rosario, and Amy Vasquez. Congratulations. And in senior all-county treble chorus, Tanya Demostine, Tahila Hill, Juliana Munoz, and Angelica Silas. In area all-state chorus and senior all-county mixed chorus, Kathleen Fortunato, Keyshawn Hendrick, Annette Keel, Sarah Martin, Anthony Mencia, Maya Rivera, Stephen Rush, and Weston Verhoff. And in senior all-county mixed chorus, Josephine Armu, John Carchi, Christian Castro, Amanda Gorbia, Dominic Lagano, Tristan Lee, Sebastian Maurice, Alex Monteroso, Michael Otero, Cashley Talibert, and Allison Berardi-Latarski. In area all-state band and senior all-county band, Vladimir Pena, Allison Potanovic, Margaret Romano, Lara Ann Villanueva. And we have a special congratulations to Lara Ann Villanueva, who is also part of the all-state ensemble. In senior all-county band, Caitlin Carpio, Galilea Estrella, Kenny Loradon, Jenica Liriano, Amanda Sherman, Alexander Tiso, and Nicholas Truriano. Although she's not here to receive her certificate tonight because in addition to being a highly outstanding musician, she's also a scholar athlete. But we had one of our students, Maggie Romano, who is quite the fine oboist. She was recognized by a community organization, the Orchestra of St. Peter by the Sea at Dominican College, for her achievement and commitment to musical and community activities. And part of this recognition, she was totally surprised by it. She was actually presented with a brand new English horn, which is a very expensive instrument. And so congratulations to Maggie. And we know she will continue to do great and wonderful musical things. Thank you, as always, to our Board of Education and our Central Office Administration, who recognize the importance of the arts in our students' lives and who take the time to give our students this kind of recognition. I've said it the last couple of years and I'll say it again. I don't know if any other district is doing that, but as a parent of a music student in NIAC, I know NIAC is not giving this recognition, so I'm very grateful that North Rockland takes the time at these meetings to acknowledge our arts students. Thank you.
Talented, dedicated students who work so hard on their musical ability, but who helps them work hard along with their families, who give them the support, is the outstanding music teachers that we have in this district. And I know how blessed we are one of my older sons, who was a student here, works in other districts in Westchester. And he tells me all the time, Mom, you have such gems in each and every one of your music teachers. He says, because I see other districts and what they do. So I am so grateful as a board person, but also as a parent, and I'm so grateful for the dedication and hard work you give to our kids, both in school and on outside activities. Thank you so much.
And we don't see them here tonight, but we know that music, the love of music starts right from the elementary schools. And when Mary speaks of our teachers, we mean all of them, right from our elementary school teachers on up. We have a phenomenal music department, but like Mary also stated, we also want to thank music parents, because music parents do a lot to support their children, and whether it's lessons outside of even what they get in school or just sitting through their hours of practices at home. We know how it sounds when they first start, but as you see, when they finish off at the high school level, is just unbelievable. There's nothing more pleasing to me than going to a concert and just sitting there, and whether it's the little ones just struggling to get through a little march, or whether I sit there at the high school and I'm totally transported by the growth that I see in students from the time they started in 4th grade to what we end up seeing at the end. So it's just phenomenal. So thank you, all of you. As the board alluded to, it is budget season, not just for the state, but obviously for school districts. And being in the situation that North Rockland finds itself in with that Myron debt, I know that our budget is always complex every year. I know many districts do 1 or 2 budget presentations in April and May, and they're done. We really start our budget process in the winter and in December, and start talking about those variables that we do know surrounding our budget, and then as information becomes available, continue adding to that picture. Right now, what we do know, and again, don't have to worry about taking notes, all of these presentations are posted on our website. What we do know right now is the budget that the governor has proposed. So when you look at the first column, we have this year's budget and the aid that we received from the state aid for this past year was, when you take everything into account, total net state aid was $60,351,791. The proposed state aid under the governor's proposed budget would be $62,562,295 for a net change of 2.2 million, or 3.6%. You'll see in the bottom the bullet aid. You know that through tremendous lobbying by this community and handing over 10,000 signatures to the governor's office last year, we did receive from the legislature a one-time $4 million state bullet aid last year to help us with the Myron debt that we have incurred, and you'll see later on what that is. So right now, based on the governor's proposal, this is where we are in terms of the increase in state aid. And we know that these numbers change. When the governor develops his budget, he takes a look at the run that's available in November. And there are a lot of numbers there. You heard Debbie talk about transportation aid, building aid, the BOCES aid. Those are all refundable aid lines. In order to receive that funding, you have to have spent money. So we, obviously from November till now, have continued to spend in those areas. So the full amount is not reflected in the governor's budget, and those numbers will continue to change until the actual budget comes through. We know that we talked often about the fully funded. You see a lot in the paper, you may hear it in the news about districts not being fully funded from the Campaign for Fiscal Equity. And you'll see a big jump. And these numbers, again, come from the state education department. So we're not making up these numbers, or we're not calculating it on our own. They actually tell us what our full aid would be on our runs. And you'll see a big discrepancy between this year and the anticipated aid for next year. And you'll see the explanation underneath. The aid has been capped for several years. So therefore, it's not real time in terms of what the real calculation should be, should there be calculations made today on real time in terms of, for example, what our real wealth, combined wealth, property, and income wealth is in our community, what students we're servicing in our community. We know that our poverty rate has risen tremendously in North Rockland. This doesn't account for those factors. So would it account for all factors, and would we be totally compensated on attendance rate for every student that we service? We should be receiving an additional $30 million. That's what that really translates to. If we were fully funded, and not just us, any district in the state of New York has a different number there. No one is being fully funded, so we're not different from anybody else, the other 700 in the state, although the amounts vary greatly. And some districts are actually making out better because they've had decreases in their enrollment, or they've had very little fluctuation in their wealth ratio. So those districts are actually making out a little better than if real-time calculations were made. Okay?
You talked about the poverty numbers, and I want people to know something that we learned this weekend. Poverty numbers for state aid purposes are the numbers from the 2000 census. Well, we're in 2018. Last year, they used a one-time bump of the 2010 numbers. They did not put that in. Why didn't they put that in? They put that in because it cost them too much money last year. So when you talk about capping these numbers, we said yesterday, well, why don't you just pick poverty from 1990, because the number is so irrelevant. If you're not going to stay current with the data, even using 2010, we're 8 years behind, and we know our demographics have changed. But our poverty has gone up an awful lot compared to the 2000 numbers. So we're really getting shortchanged all the way around. And we complain that you can't push from the top with the tax cap and push from the bottom, because you're going to squeeze the schools right out and through the middle. So we'll keep up the good fight.
Yes. So in total, you'll see there, from the time that it was frozen in 2009-10, what this district should have received if it were fully funded is $173 million. That's tough to overcome in budget. As we know, the GEA, we know that we lost $29 million there in the course of those 6 years, and that money we know is not being returned either. So the tax cap.
We lost $42 million in tax revenue.
With the Myra. Yes.
So it's a double whammy.
And received an increase of $12 million in payments for the Myra. So a double, yeah, it was like a $50 million shift. This year's tax cap, we know that we always say the 2% tax cap, as they like to call it, is not really a 2% tax cap. First of all, it's a levy limit, and there's a formula. This is the formula up here that the state provides, and the state provides us those numbers. They provide us, for example, the tax-based growth factor that has to do with new properties, new businesses, new construction in a community that adds to the tax base. So as you see that grew substantially for us last year, and it affects your tax cap calculation in a positive way for school district revenue. So based on the formula, staying within the tax cap formula, we're able to go up actually 4.94% next year for a net of $6,977,000. That seems like good news. We want to just show that, because when we look at this, people say, well, are my taxes going up 4.9%? Not necessarily. First of all, we sit in 2 towns. So we know that there's an equalization rate that plays a part on how taxes are distributed and how assessments are finally equalized in a community. And obviously new construction, new companies that might come in, the pipeline, that great growth there of 240 percentage points is really mostly due to the new pipeline that went in Stony Point and a little part of Hattersville Town last year. So that was tremendous growth to the tax base in Stony Point. We don't know, we don't think that there's going to be such tremendous growth in this year's tax base. But based on last year we had a tax levy increase of 1.26%. However, you'll see here that in neither Hattersville or Stony Point did that translate to a tax increase, a tax rate increase of 1.26%. It was actually a negative or a decrease in taxes in both municipalities. So you'll see there homestead and non-homestead, what went down actually in terms of your tax rate. So although there was an increase, the tax rate was actually a decrease. And that all has to do with, again, assessments, new people contributing to that tax base, and the equalization rate. We're not able to give this breakdown because we know that the assessment rolls for next year are not done yet until May. The towns finalize them around May, and then it's not until August that the state actually finalizes the equalization rate. So with a past approved budget, you'll see there that the net increase from this year to next year would be $5.9 million. The tax cap increase, the allowable tax cap staying within the cap would be 6.9. State aid, right now under the governor's budget, is projected at 2.2, and you'll see the 4 million in parentheses because as far as we know, that's not coming this year, so that would be actually a minus. If all those numbers stay the same and we have an approved budget, we would still have to take $8.8 million from our reserves to make our budget whole. So the total revenue offsets on next year's budget again would be $5.9 million. Interesting to note that we're doing really the revenue side, but you'll see the expense side coming up at a future presentation. Just our health insurance for employees is going up almost $7 million on the current projection that we have from the company that we use. They're saying we could go up anywhere from 15 to 18% next year. So we've made cuts in other parts of the budget to absorb some of that increase, but most of this increase will be eaten up by the increase in health premiums. Going back with a failed budget, we know that under the current law, if the budget fails, you could put it up a second time, you could put up the same budget, you could put up a reduced budget. If it fails a second time, we know that we can't increase the levy a penny. So that there are question marks there because then that 6.9 million would have to be made up somehow. And it's made up either of a combination of increasing what we're using from reserves or making cuts in the district. And I know that 12 years of making cuts in this district have us at a point that the three of us spent about an hour and a half in a room today and just looking at our staffing projections, looking at our enrollment projections. And it is really tough at this point to make any additional cuts without really hurting and getting rid of totally of certain programs and certain services that we have in the district. We're at a point that class size, just cutting a section in a grade, it's not doable because we would be pushing class size. In the high school, we're already at contractual levels in many classes. In the middle school, we're close. And in the elementary is the level that we protect the most because we know those children are small and they need the attention of a teacher and you can't put 40 of them in a class together. So we are dangerous in terms of the levels of staffing at the elementary now. We have protected that level for many years, but the last couple of years we've had to go there, at least at the 4 to 6 level, and increase those class sizes. So it's not a comfortable place to be without me coming to you with some recommendations to just eliminate certain programs and certain services. But that's a decision that we'll have to make a little later on, and hopefully with some additional funding, the cliff would be a little smaller. We have here the 5-year projection that we always give you to remind everyone where we've been. We always have new people in the audience, and we like to just remind where our percentage change in our budgets have been over the last 5 years and where our tax levy has been. And as you see, in terms of the tax levy, because of the law, it's never been 2% for us. It was 0.25% 4 years ago, then 1.3%, then it was actually a negative We collected less in the levy than we did the year before, $74,000 less. And then last year, 1.26%, while health costs for the past 2 years have been double digit. So to balance all that out, we've had to continue to reduce staffing, to change the way we operate certain things. But, you know, after doing it, like I said, for 12 years, it's tough to continue to do that without just losing total services. What we've used in the designated fund balance, and you know that at one point we were using 24 million one year because we were cut so drastically, and the GA was hitting us, and the not fully funded was hitting us. And from there, we said, this is living on an unbelievable credit card that's not going to be around much longer. So we made a collective decision that we had to really try harder to get off that, what we were using in fund balance. And when they started returning the GA, we actually didn't spend that. We still controlled our spending, and we started reducing what we were using from fund balance. And we have been using 12 million over the last 2 years. Last year, with the 4 million that was awarded, we were able to reduce that to 8. And this year, because the tax cap allows us to increase the levy by a decent amount, we could stay at that 8 million and continue that lowering trend, hopefully, as state aid rises a little more. That number needs to be 0, or needs to be, you know, no more than $1 million a year, which is what most districts use to balance their budgets. The foundation aid shortfall we show there, and the percentage in shortfall. It's important to know that over 12 years, if we do the average of 12 years, our budget to budget increases over 12 years, including next year's 4.9, would still be 1.78. And our levy increases is finally going to a positive number. It's been a negative number because we had reduced the levy. So if you remember, back in 2006-07, what we collected in the levy was 142 million. We're saying 12 years later, we're finally going to 148, 6 million more in 12 years. So the MyRent overview, we know what it did to our property taxes, because you say, how can we be collecting so much less in levy? But it's who's paying for it. Like Debbie said, the MyRent plan was devalued, and they were paying at $1.46 million, the two plans, Lovett and Bowline. Today, combined, they pay about 1.8. So that was a 44 million loss in assessed value there. That was a combination of cuts that we made and a combination of the rest of us that live in the community picking up that amount. So the total debt, we know that we had to pay back 224 million. We paid 30 million upfront from reserves that had been accumulated, knowing that this was coming. We had to bond 190, but when you pay the interest rate on those bonds for 30 years, the total amount that we're actually paying is 369,284,964. Mind you that our budget that year was about 187, so the settlement was way more than our entire budget for the year. We say our children have paid because this money would have gone to the education of our kids. Instead, it's going to pay those bonds. So from 2008 to this past year, we have paid to date 145,723,364. We still owe almost what the original amount of the debt was. So you know that they take their interest up front. So the principal is just like our mortgages. That's why I often refer to this as the district's mortgage. We still owe 223 million for the next 20 years. Our annual payment, it's lower now because we did refinance $150 million of those bonds that were recallable. The interest rate was much better last year, and those had initially been bonded at about 4 or 5%, so they were rebonded at 3%, and we were able to reduce that payment over the years. So the current payment is $11,450,500. We continue, like you heard Debbie and Peggy talk about advocacy, and Mary. We continue to be very active in both Albany and the federal level, and here's a list of, since for the past 2 years, what we've done and where we've been. As part of our advocacy and that 10,000 signature petition that was handed in, the governor's office felt that it wanted an outside view of our finances, not that they didn't trust us, but they wanted an outside person telling them that what we're saying in our accounting is right. So they asked us to submit to a controller's review of budgets for the next 3 years. We actually gave them projections for 5 years. They were here for a month, and the report pretty much said, yes, this district, what they're saying, they're conservative, they've done a really good job managing this debt, but this cliff is coming when they say it's coming. So we do have that report from the auditors that confirms what we've been saying. And we will continue to discuss budget as things unfold in Albany. We hope we have an on-time budget. Another conversation and the next presentation will be about full-day kindergarten, and those numbers are not included in these budget numbers right now, but we are planning sort of duly. We know that there's a proposal from the governor to increase aid for districts that haven't converted to full-day kindergarten. So if Chris, if you wouldn't mind, yep.
One thing that we've been asking the state to recognize is the cost of doing business in this region. And they really don't fully recognize that in any of their expense aids or even in the foundation aid, the way it should be done. And it does cost us a lot more here. So we shouldn't, we're not saying just, well, give us more because it's us. We're saying just be fair about it. And the dollar doesn't go as far here as it does in other parts of the state. And the same thing goes on the federal level. The dollar doesn't go as far, in New York as it does in other states in the union. So we're kind of shortchanged in that respect. And we've asked them to really, when you're looking at it, just look at us different. The state does recognize it in certain civil service positions that are state. They'll give you a differential if you, so they already have it built in. It's not a new concept for them. They already pay people who are differently based upon their proximity to the metropolitan area. So it's not new to them, and we're just asking you to treat it the same way. So you're aware of that as parents and all that. That's something, if you see your legislators, you should be pushing for too. Thanks.
Anything else?
I just want to say,
As with most things in the political system, the squeaky wheel gets heard. So if you're here tonight and you're attending this budget presentation and you're concerned, I ask you please to make sure that you contact Senator Larkin, Assemblyman Skoufis, and Assemblyman Zembrowski and express your concerns about what's happening in North Rockland and reiterate the fact that we need help. The community needs help. We've done a yeoman's job rather, when it comes to trying to manage this debt. And as we continued to point out yesterday, if we were fully funded, the Morant monkey would be off our back. That's important. We stand out in the state of New York because we have the largest tax tertiary that was ever awarded in the history of the state of New York. They need to step up to the plate and help this district. They've helped other districts because it's smaller and your problem is so large. I don't want to hear that anymore. I'm not buying it anymore. The state education department and the Office of Budget and Management tells us what we're due. And you have a lovely slide in the presentation, which everybody can access the numbers on the website tomorrow. They need to step up to the plate and make an exception for North Rockland. You can fully fund North Rockland based on one thing and one thing only, Morant debt. So I'm asking people to push for that. Or at least recognize that anytime a district runs, it's usually for a capital project, and that has a reimbursable number to it based on your wealth ratio. So, I mean, we know the suggestion that our two assemblymen had to at least be able to give that aid equivalent to the capital aid fund to the Myron debt because it was larger than our entire budget, because it is the largest one on the state. So some things, some allowable thing, we are different from anybody else. When I know all of us, when we share this information with colleagues, I know when I at a superintendent's meeting statewide, when I share that amount, people's jaws drop. They can't believe that we were handed that kind of a settlement. So, and it's nothing we did wrong. Actually, we were very glad to hear Senator Larkin admit that he had had a conversation with the controller and that the controller was very complimentary of how the debt has been handled by the district for the past 12 years. That's great, and every time we go meet with the Ways and Means Committee, they're very complimentary on what we're doing and how we've managed the debt. And that's great to hear that but it doesn't help us.
Suggestions.
No. Right. So, again, it's not a problem that we incurred because we did anything wrong. We were on the receiving end of something that was beyond our control.
No, because we don't assess property.
Right.
Only the towns and the villages assess property. We don't have that legal authority.
Right.
But it was good to see other legislators outside of the area, outside of the county knowing that.
Yes.
It seems to be getting on people's radars.
I have to say, I think our elected officials have done a good job because I think they have made it very public. And you're right, they have done their job on the floor, lobbying for us in their own way. And I know every legislator is there representing their community and they each want a piece of the pie for their community because that's what they're there to do. But I think ours have done an excellent job in representing our plight and in making sure people on the legislature know about it. So full day kindergarten analysis. I know with the governor's proposal, and there could be changes to that, but we did a little analysis again, and I know the group is here tonight. That was another yesterday. And I know they've given up a lot of their time to fight not just for their kids, but for every single child in our community. And this is on their own time, taking time off from work, doing a lot of research on their own, and doing a lot of lobbying. So thank you for your work. And here's what we've shared with them to share with our legislators. So full day kindergarten expenditures, and we did a 5-year analysis because it's important to see 5 years out, I think. The first 2 years usually are covered. First year is covered under the current legislation. 2 years would be somewhat covered under the governor's, and I know that both the House and the Senate had bills last year to cover somewhat 5 years of a transition aid, and we'll see all those scenarios here. So in additional staffing, in additional classroom equipment and supplies, and most of that is furniture. We don't have, we would need additional rooms furnished with those furniture pieces that are appropriate for kindergarten, and materials obviously for our teachers and for our students. And you'll see that that drops off substantially the second year because we don't need furniture again, we just need those consumable supplies.
How many additional classrooms the spaces would you need over and above what we currently have when you talk furniture?
We would need 10, yeah. 10.5 teachers because we have a 4.5 teacher right now in kindergarten. So, and then obviously monitors, special area teachers, TAs. So it's the staffing is obviously the biggest piece. Classroom modifications and that second piece is there are some classrooms that are currently being used as office spaces. We would have to tear down some walls, repaint, do some electrical work, some reconfiguration in about 3 of those or 4 of those spaces. And then we would need some additional playground equipment because our playground equipment is sufficient for half the population. But if you add double the population, what we have is really not adequate. Kids would probably be eating at the same time. So you have the cost there over the 5 years. Yes. And I don't want to leave out there, we'll be a little tight in our buildings. But with the debt that we already have, if we could fit, and I thank our principals, I think Mary's here, and Pete, they've done a yeoman's job of going through their buildings, reconfiguring how we could move certain people around, certain offices around, certain programs around. But we're being, as we always are, very conservative with spending. And am I going to tell you that you're never going to need to add? No, we're going to be tight in those buildings. So if our population increases by any significant amount in the future, you might have to put on a a few portable additions in each of the buildings. But for now, I think we fit. And yes, Peggy, we're gonna be a little stretched with our core facilities in terms of lunch and gym space, but it'll work. Yes, and at some point, you're gonna have to do that. Right.
Or you stretch core facilities beyond your gym and your
Yes.
cafeteria, beyond what they can.
Right.
Hold.
Yeah. So, total number of students, we found something out in doing these calculations and talking to people. We currently have 490 students in our kindergarten cohort. We estimate that about 60 of those, just because in the past, we get about 20 or so per building that come in as first graders. So we know that some families, because of need or because of desire, keep their kindergartners in private full day, so they come into our schools as first graders. So the 60 is based on our average from the last few years. So our total cohort would move up to 550, and that's the number we were using to calculate everything that we've done in terms of the different scenarios. The state aid per student is there, 7.5, and so the total conversion aid year one would be 4,125,000, and you see that the total aid conversion two would be half of that, which would be $2 million, for a total in those 2 years of just over $6 million, which would cover the conversion pretty much for those 2 years. Now you'll see the projected aid under the governor's proposal there, based on half of those students, 490 minus 233. The 233 is what we're already servicing under federal programs on a full day basis. So if we were to convert, sadly enough, we don't get credit for those children in the conversion aid. So it's deducted. So you'll see that the scenario there changes quite drastically. And by doing what we thought was the right thing, using federal funds to provide a full day experience whenever possible, we're actually going to be losing $2.6 million in conversion aid. That's what this whole thing translates to. So I think we have a new lobbying mission, changing the language. Well, yeah, it's interesting. So a few years ago, we said, okay, we haven't been able to do full day kindergarten, but there are certain populations that really need additional time. And we started with our self-contained, our special ed self-contained. These are our neediest little learners. Some of them come to us, some of them have had a preschool experience, some have not, and they're already behind on that learning curve. So we said, let's use some IDA money, and we looked at our IDA funds, and not that we weren't using it in a good way, but we rediverted some funds there to provide our self-contained kindergartners with a full day kindergarten experience. Then our ENL learners, we know that a lot of those children come without any prior pre-K experience. They're learning a second language. They're our second, neediest group of students in terms of a learning curve. We said, let's use some Title III money and some Title I money to provide those children, not with a full day kindergarten, because they're really not in a full day kindergarten. They're in a half day kindergarten program with an extended day language experience being taught by an ESL teacher. So they're getting ESL services that they would be entitled to during the day, but they're getting an extended time with ESL. I have to say that program is extremely successful because we see a great exit rate, either at the end of kindergarten or at the end of first or second grade. So that extra help really helps our students become proficient sooner and be able to access the regular curriculum. That's being used with federal money. So all our extended experiences in kindergarten are really being paid by federal money that we would not be able to do when we convert to full day, because you can't supplant. So once everybody else is getting full day, we can't pay for those salaries out of those grants. So my contention is we're not using local funds right now to provide the extended day experience for our kindergartners. We're not going to be able to use those funds moving forward, so why wouldn't we be able to count all our kids as new kindergarten, funded by local funds?
You have to call it full day kindergarten, call it half day kindergarten with extended services, could they count that?
I'm not sure, Peg, that's going to be our argument, but
They're
it's,
always playing with the words.
I know. But it's how it comes from your ST3 and your other state reports, and you have to say, are the kids there half a day or a full day? They don't care what program you have them in or what you're calling it. But, you know, our argument is that they're being supported by federal funds for enhancement. We're not supplanting. So we're gonna fight it. I don't know where it will take us. I think it's gonna take some legislation change of language that our legislators are gonna have to help us with. It is a lot of money, and you'll see in the following scenarios what it really means. So here's the current law. Up on top is if we're using only the students that, the current, right, that we currently have. Conversion aid for only half-day kindergarten students. Yeah, the 233 is taken out of there.
490 minus the 233.
Yes,
Okay.
yes, so the first, and that's under the current legislation. So the current legislation only funds your conversion aid for 1 year, okay? So on the first year, it would cost us $73,000. In the second year, because there's no conversion aid, the full amount would have to go in our budget, and you see there the following years. In the second scenario, though, we're funding everybody. So if we're allowed to count the 550 kindergartners that are in the total cohort, our conversion aid would be just over $4 million. It would only cost us 2.5, so we would be able to carry over that 1.5 to cover some of the cost of year 2. So even in this scenario, being able to count every child really makes it much more doable, because it gives us at least total coverage for 1 year and a good partial coverage for the second year. Under the governor's proposal, again on top, you have just counting the half of the children that don't have the full day program, and you'll see again, it would cost us $73,000 the first year. We would get 50% aid the second year, so it would cost us just over $1 million the second year, and then you'll see the full amount. And remember, the full amount for the next few years, because we're capped at foundation aid. In the second proposal, again, it's if we're able to count everybody, you would have 1.6 million left over in the first year that it would totally cover the second year, and then partially, you know, be able to move something over even to the third year. So even with the governor's proposal, what's key for us is being able to count every student, because it makes every scenario so much better. Under the assembly proposal, and their proposal is full funding the first year, 80% the second, 60% the third, 40% the fourth, and 20% the fifth. So it's a 5-year phase-in. And obviously, you know, the 5 districts that are left in the state of New York, and I've spoken with a couple of those superintendents, it's like us. It's not a matter of philosophy that they wouldn't want to do it. It's a matter of resources. One of them told me I would have to blow my cap, and I don't think my community is going to vote on that. So it's all a matter of resources to be able to accomplish it. You would see there at the top, obviously much more favorable. What we would be receiving in conversion aid is in parentheses in the bottom there, and what it would cost us net. And then with the assembly plan and being able to count every student, you see that we're able to really cover this for about 4 years fully. So it really makes a huge difference on, then you pay finally the whole thing, but it gives us 5 years.
But by then, you hit the Vermont cliff.
Yes.
3 years out, you hit the Vermont cliff, and they have to come up with something.
They will know where we stand.
Right.
It was mentioned before about that, because I personally heard it from legislators telling us that the Moran is just too big of a monster.
Right.
The other thing that gets thrown in our face is that you have reserves. But we refuse to burn and crash the district and just eat away at our reserves and make all kinds of major cuts. But it's a shame that we're being punished for having a reserve and being responsible. It's very frustrating.
It is very frustrating. Yes.
Yeah, this,
Or
we're
again,
punished us for
we're
trying to do
the
the right
right
thing.
thing.
All the kids.
Right. So again, here's the wording that we need to change. Right now, we're only allowed to count the increase in full day kindergarten enrollment. So since we have about half of the kindergarten already receiving full day, we're only allowed to count the increase, so the other half that would be receiving it. We need that wording to be that the aid is equal to the total kindergarten enrollment coming into the current year. So hopefully if we could get that legislative change, and if something happens even between the governor's proposal and the legislative proposal, that, you know, we would be in better shape to be able to seriously look at a plan.
Well, you know, when we were visiting our legislature yesterday, we went into Senator Carlucci's office, because that's where the other Rockland County group was, even though he doesn't represent us. But he had said, one, he was aware, and he spoke about the situation we're in. But he also spoke about how the legislature is open to having these special little things passed, bills passed to help individual districts. So he could be somebody to go to say, okay, and I'm sure, I don't know if you ladies went to see him, but to say this is something specific to North Rockland only, can this be then added to whatever?
Can you support that?
Can you support that?
But it's something that should be available to the other ones too, for this.
But they might not
Instead of,
have,
you know, they may not have to use it.
Right, they may not have anyone currently receiving services.
We're trying to do what we believe in, and we should be.
Right.
but if this could, if we are the only district out of the few that are left that have that situation, they might be more prone to be able to help. Because obviously the whole state is now aware of what we're going through. And if this line could change it, you know, and help us, I'm hopeful that they will do that.
So, something you said was interesting before we talked to the other superintendent about the cap. The year that we're not, whichever proposal we work here, the year that we're not supported for that amount of money, and we can't raise the cap because that's not in our control, it's a supermajority public. The year that that happens, is the amount that we add is directly proportional to what we have to cut in another program.
Yeah, yes.
So it's-
At that moment, then it's a fully implemented program, and then you're looking at all your programs and you say, what goes? If we have to cut $8 million that one year, we're not able to bring that fund balance, what we're using in fund balance down in 5 years, then at that point, you're right, Robert, whatever that cliff is, then you're looking at all your programs. It might be that gets cut again, it may be something else. But you're looking at all your programs and you're saying what goes to make us whole with whatever that cliff happens to be.
But even classroom sizes can't.
There's not much more to go there. Yes.
Be educationally sound. You know, in the high school we're there, have 30 kids in a high school class, very different than attempting to have 30 kids in an elementary school.
So.
Thank you.
I know a district who did move it. Put it up, just be, you know, do that. Use your rebate check, and you lose your star, I think.
Well,
They
and
do, and, you know, like, so they said even if the community supported it again, like, how do you do that to people who are just trying to make ends meet? They rely on this. How do you do it? So it's a tough call in this district where we really had so much, you know, on the children's aspect.
Right.
It's scary.
yeah,
The budget
The
fails.
star too?
no.
Not the star, just the rebate check.
Yeah, because the rebate is based on the increased cost of your taxes.
You don't lose that.
No, not your start. No. Yes. everyone. Thanks for letting us present. I'm very excited to talk about these two programs that we have put in place in the district over the last 2 school years. So before I get started, I'd like to introduce the people that are presenting with me, because these are really the people that are doing the hard work. So with me tonight, I have Pete DiBernardi, principal of Fields, Mira Esposito, principal at West Haverstraw, and then the classroom teachers, Tiffany Jones, who's the 1212 teacher at Fields, Laura Woodhead, and Alexandra Amadeo, who are the 812 teachers at West Haverstraw. And not presenting, but here in support, I'd also like to acknowledge 2 of the teacher aides that work in the 812 program. Nancy Fisher and Ida DeBellis are here in support. So with the support of the board, you know, the central office administration, I had the idea 2 years ago of creating more in-district opportunities for our own students, and thus the creation of these 2 classes. Previously, these students would have all been educated, you know, typically in a Rockland BOCES program, and while they are excellent programs, it's nice to keep our kids in our district. So this has been the program development over the last 2 years. So in the school year of 16-17, we opened the 2 new classes, the 1212 at Fields, the 812 at West Haverstraw. As you can see, 11 students in the first class, 5 students in the second class. And just to quickly explain the ratio, when we talk about that 1212 or the 812, that's 12 students to 1 teacher to 2 teaching assistants. That's always the ratio. The student numbers first, the teachers in the middle, and then the teaching assistant is the last number. So that was last year, and Tiffany and Laura took the lead on those classes and did an amazing job. This year, the 1212 actually became a K1. Of those 11 students, she moved 3 on to different, less restrictive settings in district. So we were able to move 4 kindergarten students in. And then we opened another kindergarten 812 class full with 8 students. So that's been 12 students, 8 students, and another 5 again. These students all would have previously been somewhere else, not in district. That little bit of background, I want to get to the good stuff. I'm going to introduce Pete, or let Pete take over. He'll talk a little bit about the school, and then we'll really get into what goes on in the classroom.
Thank you for giving us the opportunity to talk. First, I know that Sarah's on the agenda as well for, I believe, her tenure tonight. So congratulations. I had the opportunity to work with Sarah for the past couple of years. And although I don't know if Sarah realizes that this is the final step in her tenure components as administrator, this is kind of like what I think she kind of like was very strategic in assembling a formidable team here to present. You know, I know after working with her for the past couple of years, she's really a fantastic collaborator. She knows her stuff, and she's just a fantastic colleague and fellow administrator. So I wish her a lot of luck in many years of working with her here in North Rockland. But basically, I'm just going to talk a little bit about what Fields Elementary, you know, the school, its demographics, its background, and then I'm going to turn it over to the expert in our building, Tiffany Jones, who's been here for a couple of years with us at Fields, and she'll talk a little bit about her classroom. But basically, you can see at the top our enrollment, we have around 760 students here at Fields Elementary School. We are a K-3 building. We have a pretty large kindergarten, about 180 students. And about 17 of those students are in the self-contained kindergarten classrooms, and Tiffany has several of those children. Our first grade has 207 children, and roughly 20 of those children are also in self-contained classes. Then and you can read second grade, about 190 students with 12 in self-contained, and then third, 183 with 13 in self-contained. So we have a continuum of self-contained classes starting from kindergarten through third. And Tiffany's is the second of 2 self-contained classes in kindergarten. She's the 1212. Mrs. Degnan has the 15-1. Our demographics, as you can see, we have a pretty diverse building. with the dominant population being Hispanic or Latino, roughly 60% of our population, and then followed up with 23% white, 12 Black African American, and then 3 Asian or the Pacific Islander. If you've done the math pretty quickly, I don't know how many of you've done it, there's about 2% mixed or missing or chosen not to identify as any other in there. But that captures kind of the demographics of who we are at Fields. You may remember when we reorganized the district a few years back, when we consolidated some of the schools, our objective at the board level and the superintendent level was to mix up the school district, diversify, and this is part of the result, and I think we achieved part of that. You can see some of the other services that we provide. We have roughly 125 students who are classified as English as a native language or ESL students, and that's roughly about 16% of our school population, and then 102 students who are receiving special ed services, and that's a variety of special ed services. That could be speech and language, that can be receiving consultant teacher services, resource room, occupational therapy, physical therapy, and so on and so forth. And then all the people who come together to help make these things, work at Fields Elementary School and help our students pursue excellence. 109 people in one building, roughly, on a given day. And that's about 36 general and special education teachers coming together to work with our kids and give them an opportunity to be successful and set them up for success, to pass them off to then Willow Grove, and then to Fieldstone and to North Rockland High School. And I'm going to turn it over to Tiffany, who's going to talk to you about her classroom and some of the most exciting kids in the school. I try to avoid going into Tiffany's class every day, because when I do go in there, they're basically a football team, and they tackle me, and because they're so excited to see me every day. And so it takes about 2 or 3 minutes for them to get back into their seats or settle down. And so, no, let's say chaos. I'd say excitement.
Hello. So the 1212 consists of a bunch of different kinds of learners, various needs and abilities. There's no one classification for the children in this class. So we follow the general curriculum that the general ed classes follow as much as we can. We adapt it and modify as needed. Some children need it adapted tremendously, and other children can access it exactly the way it is, and they might be in my room for other reasons. So as you can see from some of the pictures I just put up, being that we're such a small class and we have such great staff, we have a lot of small grouping where we can really differentiate instruction and break it down into smaller tasks to help the kids be successful. We, of course, use technology because the kids love it and that's where they're most motivated. We use a lot of sensory integration to work on letters, numbers, and general fine motor skills. And like I said, some kids are able to just access it the way it is, so we do a lot of differentiation within our classroom. Some of the things that we do in our classroom to modify and help our children be successful, we use a lot of visual cues. One common ground for all our students is they are all language delayed, so the visual schedules really help them to know what they need to be doing and where they need to be. So these are just a few examples of what we use. The walking in the hallway, the circle time one is one that is used every single day. They need that reminder every day before we start. This is what's expected of you when you're sitting here. Class volume is a big one because a lot of the kids are super loud or really, really soft, and so they really respond well. They can come up and move it themselves, and if I tell them what number they're supposed to be on, they're able to modulate their voice a little bit better, so that visual helps them. We keep a structured schedule that the kids can follow. A lot of them are used to it being there, and if I skip something or miss something, they're the first to let me know, because they really thrive in that routine, and they're highly excitable. That's why, whenever somebody comes in the room, they're the friendliest kids. They love seeing people, but they really strive on their structure and routine. Again, we use small group instruction. We use modified seating. We have some bumpy seats. Some kids we let stand at their desk. Sometimes we do work on the floor on our bellies. The video I'm about to show you is one of the things that we do, which I'm sure you've heard of, our brain breaks. We take frequent movement breaks. We call it legalized movement because they're constantly wanting to move. So we need to allow them that time to move, but when we allow it. So we give them instruction time and then we give them break times. Probably every 20 to 30 minutes, we try to build a break in. So the video I'm going to show you is of my class, actually from last year, taking a brain break. And I think that if you watch them, some of them may end up in a high school play one day. You'll see. You can go ahead and play the video. Watch the boy run. So it's just a cute little clip of our classroom. We have a lot of fun. For some reason, this picture's not popping up. It might pop up eventually. But we have a lot of different behavior supports within our classroom. The picture that's not showing up, like I said, I think it'll pop up because I pulled this up earlier. For some reason, it's really slow to show up. We use a behavior chart with check marks for just to reinforce positive behavior, which could be anything from you're sitting nicely to I like the way you talk to your friend to I like how you raised your hand. And we give checks, and at the end, there's a reward. We start off by giving lots of checks to remind them of what they need to be doing, and then we slowly pull it back so they're not expecting them all the time. And we have a prize box, and nothing big, but the kids get excited to go in it. We also do use a color-coded chart, which again is a visual to remind them where their behavior's at. So if the green is, you're on task, you're doing what you need to be doing. If they move to yellow, then that's a reminder to them, like, oh, look, we have to fix your behavior, and it helps them remember what they're doing and how they fix it. We talk a lot about how we fix our behavior. The boy is coloring, and this is a parent communication log that I use in my class, and the kids color it, it matches their chart for the day, so they're accountable for behavior. They know that whatever happens in school, mom and dad know about it, and they're mostly in green. I mean, they're good. We use visuals. I have them around my ID. So that I don't have to constantly remind them to say crisscross, to quiet mouth. I use a visual card so that if I'm in circle teaching and I just notice one child is not sitting correctly or one child trying to talk, I can just point to my visual and they can get back on track without interrupting the whole group. Another thing is on the bottom right here in the middle of the pictures, this is a social story. A lot of my kids respond really well to what are called social stories. And basically it's a story that explains how they're expected to behave in a certain situation. This one is for walking in the hallway. So it just breaks it down to simple tasks with pictures, and we read it to them over and over, and a lot of kids are really successful with those. So sorry that the picture didn't show up. Oh, there it is. I don't know why that happened. Well, there. So there you go. That's what I was explaining, just the checks, and they get rewards. Of course, I collaborate with a lot of people. OT, speech, PTs, we have a child that is hearing impaired. My administrators are wonderful. Our school psychologist, we have a behavior specialist who is wonderful. And other teachers, my assistants, we collaborate all around. This is just a few of the things that we use in our classroom in collaboration. Like the occupational therapist has given us way to best for some students. We use slam boards for other students with fine motor problems. So we try to incorporate all these things in the classroom so that there's carryover between their speech and their OT, and that we're meeting all those needs in the classroom as well. It's not just isolated for their services. And the most important part, of course, is that they are educated in our district, and they just get to participate and be part of our school and our community. And these children, they're here, they live here, and you wouldn't walk in the hallways and pick them out from any of the other kids. They're doing great, and like Sarah said, we moved some to less restrictive environments, and I anticipate doing that this year too. So they're really doing very well. So thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank Sarah Sorensen for having the vision for bringing these classes to our schools. I'd like to also thank the administration and the board for supporting that vision. So at West Haverstraw Elementary School, we have 2 of those classes, and our teachers are here this evening, Ms. Woodhead and Ms. Amadeo, along with some of our aides in the classroom. I can't believe that they're all still awake because, you know, the general ed teacher probably goes home feeling like he or she has run a marathon. They feel like they've probably done a triathlon. There's a lot of energy in those rooms, and I take my hat off to them all the time. The amount of love and energy that they put right back into the classroom and into the students. So thank you so much. Similarly to Thiels Elementary School, our demographics are similar. We have a total student population of 748 students, 171 kindergartners, of which 18 are in the self-contained classes. 22 of those is the full day K lottery class. In first grade, we have 182 students, 16 self-contained. West Haverstraw, as you know, and Haverstraw Elementary Schools, we house the bilingual programs for the district. So 12, the BL stands for bilingual, 12 students in the bilingual class in first grade. In second grade, 204 students, one self-contained student because we have one class that's multi-graded. So that accounts for that one child who's in the multi-graded class with Ms. Amadeo, and 17 bilingual students. Third graders, we have 191, of which 23 are in a bilingual class and no self-contained there. Our demographics are, somewhat similar to Thiels Elementary School with, just slight differences in some of the percentages. Did want to put out there also that, something you had mentioned this evening, that our free and reduced lunch is up to 67%. That might actually be even a little higher, I think, because in talking to Ray Pasilippo, he had our overall student enrollment as much higher, and it might have counted some of our inactive students. So actually our percentage might be a little higher than that. So he said he's going to try to rerun all those numbers to kind of get a really good grasp of where, we're at in all of our schools. And, you can just read the percentages of our demographic population there. Overall ENL student population, we have 138. 93 students overall have IEPs for various needs that Mr. DiBernardi had explained. We have a total faculty and staff of 125 and 36 general ed and special ed class teachers. It has been an absolute pleasure welcoming these two classes into my school. Last year, it was very nice to rekindle a relationship with Mrs. Woodhead. We met many years ago, I think about 19 years ago at Willowbrook when we taught together there, or we worked together in the middle school. And it was great to welcome her back to West Haverstraw Elementary School. In many conversations, she said she's really found her niche. She really loves what she's doing more than ever before. And it was a wonderful addition to have Ms. Amadeo join our team as well. So we really thank you for your support in bringing these students back, our district students back into our schools, because that's where they belong, and they're doing really, really great job. So thank you so much, and I'll pass it over to our teachers at this time. Thank you.
Hi, good evening. Allie and I teach the 812 special classes. We have 13 kids in our program. Out of those 13, 9 are classified autism, and 4 of them are classified speech and language impaired. The reason those speech and language impaired students were put in these classes, they do exhibit some of the characteristics that autistic students show, but they have not been classified at. Both of our classes focus strongly on language acquisition, development, and usage. We actually have had some kids enter our program. She has one that I had last year, she has this year, and 2 that I have this year who came in as nonverbal students. So we do a lot of language development, acquisition, and usage in our classes to work on that. So a lot of our kids, like Mrs. Wood had said, that are characterized with autism spectrum disorder. So they have a diagnosis of that, and if you notice here, that autism is characterized by difficulties in social interactions, verbal and nonverbal communication, and repetitive behavior. So some of the star things that you'll see when you come into our classrooms is you'll see that they'll have difficulty interacting with their peers, difficulty understanding social cues, difficulty with language development. So that's a big component of what we're trying to work with and trying to help them develop. You'll see that they'll exhibit some perseveration and some stereotypy. What that means is that a lot of them will focus in on something. They hone in on it, they're in the zone, and it's very difficult to get them amount. So we're really working with different types of accommodations so that it doesn't impede on their learning as much as it may. And the stereotypy is when you see your stereotypical symptoms, hand flapping, toe walking, things like that, where in a smaller environment, you can really dedicate time to making them more aware of it so that they can better monitor themselves. They also have a lot of difficulty with changes and transitions, which is where you see a lot of our behavioral supports, positive reinforcements, things like that to help them with. This is what we are very lucky at West Havastra that where our classroom is situated. We are kind of in like a little alcove with 2 other kindergarten classrooms on our own. And we have this open area that we've been able to use as a sensory area. So during break times, or if there's indoor recess or any time like that, the students have an opportunity to go in and play in there, and it's all stuff that they love, meant for them, and it's great, and they love it and look forward to it, and they ask for it, and they work for it, and it's very exciting to them. So you'll see this is what our typical day looks like Tiffany said, routine is incredibly important to all of them, so. We try and stay with the district curriculum when it comes to both literacy and mathematics, but we do it in a way that's best for the students. So what we do is we teach standards and skills in the learning style that's appropriate for them. So we look at lots of different areas of literacy. We do the CKLA program, which is what all the district classes are doing. And then from there, we also use our literacy unit. So the students are being exposed to the same curriculum as their same age peers. But what we've done also is we've introduced a reading mastery, which is a direct instruction program for those students who are not progressing at the rate as their same age peers. We have a reading mastery program to help them to learn to read. And then we also rely highly on language for learning, which is a direct instruction program for language development. There's scripted programs that we do every day. It builds on skills for them, it increases vocabulary, it increases receptive vocabulary, and expressive vocabulary. Right now, like in my class, I have 8 students, so I have one who's flourishing in the CKLA program, so he is continuing with that. And I'll actually show you a slide, a video of how he's doing. But then the other students were not staying with the pace of the program, and so we added the reading mastery, and Ms. Amadeus done the same thing. So these are different literacy groups we do. We try to do everything in small groups. You can see that different students are with different people. We have teaching assistants, teachers, and there's a lot of visuals with all the programs that we do. Here's on the top left, kindergarten does community workers, so we have our chef there, after we read our book, we have our language for learning, and then we have the CKLA program is on the right. And this is actually one of my students who's in the CKLA program, and since he's flourishing, we are just going to keep pushing him to become that leader. Math is kind of a little bit of the same thing. There are some kids that we have that are right on grade level, if not a little bit above, and then some that are working at their own pace. We also have a Math Connected Concepts, which is another direct instruction, so it's paced for them. It was almost like this program was made for them, which has really been great. So the kids who are on grade level using the curriculum and flourishing with that, we keep on trucking with them. And then the kids who are having a little bit of a hard time grasping the concepts, this program has been fantastic for them as well. Yep, they're doing their shapes, which is on point, which is with the curriculum, and writing the numbers, which has been great as well. One of the components of our day also, they are called ITS sessions, which are intensive teaching sessions. This is a one-on-one instruction we do with different students who need this skill. And there might be a specific skill that we require of them. So it is a one-on-one, constant going back and forth every day until they've mastered it 3 days in a row. Then we move to a new skill. So for instance, if I need students to identify certain pictures, different animals, every day we'll show cards and we'll go over it every single time until they've mastered it. It's part of the errorless teaching practice, which you'll see. We keep doing it, and although the student might be giving us the wrong answer, we correct them until they say it correctly after us. And we also have manding, which is a one-on-one or small group session, and it focuses on requesting. That is a characteristic of autistic students, is that they don't ever request. Like, they might come up to you and just put their shoe in front of you, and we have to teach them, you need to ask, will you please tie my shoe? Or if they need help with something. So this is a thing that we do to focus on requesting, and targets are all based on motivation. Although we don't love to do it, Skittles and M&Ms are great motivators. We've tried to move kids to blocks and playtime and things like that, but the whole point is to get them to give us that correct answer towards the end. And we'll keep working on saying it over and over and over and over again until they've given us the correct answer. So this is the intention teaching session. Couch, good. Touch ship. Good. Plate. Wagon. Gum. Watermelon. Good job. Peanut cards. What is this? Good job. What is this? Good. What is this? Good job. Ready? Last one. We're going to match. 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 Look again. Match. Good. Match. 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 Look again. Match. Good. Match. Match. Good job. Good job. And I just have to add, he came in nonverbal and he's up to 30 vocabulary words, so we're very excited about him. So, all right, anyone to talk about? This student she's in first grade. She came into Mrs. Woodhead's room last year for kindergarten and was nonverbal. She also regresses a lot, so any school breaks or anything like that, it's not quite at square one, but you feel like you're there for a little bit. So she works really well in an intensive teaching session, and I was very lucky to have been given an aide for her that was willing to work and learn how to do it so that she can work with her as well when I'm in small group sessions. So this is Ida with DeSelli's. You'll see a little bit of a manding and a little bit of an ITS session with her. She has a token board where she works for 10 tokens, and then she picks what she wants to work for prior to. So you'll see that she asks her, what are you working for? She picks it out, and then when she gets 10 checks for working or sitting quietly or anything like that, she can get her reward. So you'll see her ask for it.
You think it's funny? Would you like Skittles? Okay, here we go. Ready? What is she doing? What is the girl doing? She is waving. Good girl. What is this girl doing? She is hugging. Good job. And what is this girl doing? She's dancing. She's dancing. Yes, she is dancing. Great job. Two more checks. What is this boy doing? He's swimming. Good job. What is this boy doing? He's swinging. He's swinging. He's swinging. He's swinging. Good job. Another check for that. One more check. What is this baby doing? What is he doing? He's crawling. He's crawling. He's crawling. What's the baby doing? He's crawling. What's the baby doing? He's crawling. Good girl. Look what you got. You got all your 10 checks. What would you like? What treat would you like? Skittles? Okay, that's Skittles. That is Skittles. Here we go. Let's get the Skittles out.
And we took this video last week where she was saying, want Skittles, and she's now saying, I want Skittles. So we've gone from no words to a full sentence. It's great. So some of the benefits of, for the kids in our classroom is that, like we've all said, they're kept in their district, in their home district. A lot of these kids, West Hampshire is actually their home school. So they know the kids from the community. You'll see them high-fiving them down the hallway and getting off the bus, which is awesome. They have opportunities to play with them during their specials and during their recess, which is great. They're also given other opportunities to participate in mainstream classes. My class participates in their special classes with gen ed classes, which is great. They love it. They look forward to it. They ask for it. And the teachers that we share the classes with are so inviting and welcoming as well, which has been really great. And the students are taught in a learning style that's designed for them. We work around them because if they can't learn the way we teach them, then we have to teach them the way they're going to learn. So you're going to find us dancing and everything short of walking on our hands because that's the way they want to learn it, and that's what we give them.
Outstanding job.
But really, I encourage you, I know you're all very busy, but if you're out and about, please stop in and visit those 3 classrooms. You will be absolutely amazed at what you see going on. So, thank you.
Yeah. Those kids are part of our community, and you can show us in our schools. That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
And I cannot thank Mary Pete, Tiffany, Laura, and Alan. They are amazing. Working together and loving what they do. And, you know, when Laura has absolutely found her calling, I would say Nancy Fisher and Ida DeBellis have also found their calling.
Thank you. Thank you for coming out this week.
I think, and it's been said several times, but it can be said enough. One of the things that made us a little nervous into bringing the classes back was having the right staff. And I know that we've gone into their classes and we have the right staff. These teams are absolutely amazing. I know that you must be exhausted because you're on 100% of the time. There's no taking a break. I mean, they keep you on, but the work that you're doing with the children in your classes is just amazing. And it's because you guys are amazing teachers as well. And we're very happy to have found you, because it takes a special person to really move those populations forward. And we really know that you are. We visit those classrooms and we love going in there. They are amazing. But part of the benefit, we strongly, and I know you do it as a board, also believe in keeping our kids in our home schools whenever possible. So it was such a plus. And on the financial side, there's even a plus to that, because first of all, you're not paying for busing outside of your district, which is always expensive. And for these little guys to be going to BOCES, that's a half an hour ride, they're only 4 and 5, and to be able to keep them close to home is such a plus. But we've also saved about $350,000, even with the additional staffing, keeping these services in-house. So it's been just a win all around. So thank you again. And now we go from kindergarten to high school. And thank you, Dr. Gill, for being so patient.
Thank you for having us tonight. Mrs. Eckert asked me to come and talk to you about an exciting thing that's happening at North Rockland High School. We have as you know, a wonderful scholarship awards program at North Rockland High School. We gave away over $300,000 in local scholarships and awards to last year's graduating class. And we have a challenge and a goal ahead of us in which we'd like to raise that and find new donors. And a 3 to 5 year strategic plan, we hope to give away $500,000 in local scholarships and awards. So with Mrs. Eckert's permission, Dr. Felicello's assistance, we reached out and worked with our local BOCES to do an advertising campaign. So beginning this week, we'll be mailing home 21,000 postcards to all North Rockland community residents.
directing them towards our school home page. And if you see that right there, that new scholarship program, click here button. We're gonna click that in a moment. I want to thank Lauren DePonte. She's in the back helping me out. She's a huge assistance to our scholarship program this year in developing this new website that I'm gonna have Lauren just show you real fast. Lauren, we're not gonna show the videos, I'm just gonna show, but it's right on the website. So if you go under the North Rockland High School homepage, this will take you to the new scholarship homepage we developed. If you click on donor information, right there, you'll see some more video vignettes and ways that folks can donate. There's a donate now button, which Lauren is hovering over right now, which allows potential donors to just go online and donate any monetary amount they choose to donate. That would be like a one-time donation of any amount of money, $50, $100 at a time. I do encourage everybody, for the sake of time, I'm not going to show all the videos. It's about 6 or 7 different vignettes, but that's part of our social media. And then 3 ways to donate right there. I know many people love being a part of our scholarship program. They can do it 3 ways. They can donate now, donate directly. They can create their own scholarship and choose a recipient, or they can create their own scholarship and we choose the recipient. The last 2 are the traditional ways we've been doing it for the last many years, and the donate now button is the brand new way that we're going to solicit donors.
So the donate now, if I went to donate $25, what are you doing? Lumping that all
Yeah,
together?
every Mrs. Ponte, hit the donate now button right there, that where it says school bucks donate, and then maximize that. If you go down to the pull down button right there where it says select, see that community charities fund? It's all going into one singular bucket.
And then how are you gonna?
And then what we're gonna do is we have existing scholarships that we're gonna beef up, like for instance, we did the 9/11 scholarships, which we give to first responders, students that are first responders. We give about $100 to those graduates. We'd like to see those scholarships go up into the 1,000 per student. The other thing we would do is if the bucket gets bigger, and that's what we're hoping for, we'll create new scholarships that will go through our scholarship process. So maybe different clubs and activities can get recognized, different types of student performance can get recognized, lots of different options, but we have the ability to sort of collect it. Mr. Seno's office and the business office keep it, and then we can delineate the way we want to give out the scholarships. So there's lots of ways to do that. Yeah. Yeah, what I would do, Lauren, go back, so just, you can X that out. And now, if you go here, Mr. Fernandez, see this, create your own scholarship and choose a recipient, click on that. And that takes you to a sort of a traditional letter that we write to you as a potential donor. Scroll down, and then there's a form that we have filled out. Again, we're gonna turn all this into electronic forms and we can do all that. And then really the most basic thing we do, if you see it throughout the whole website, it's called Mrs. O'Sullivan at 942-3221, and we will walk you through it. So we find that most donors just want to either have the easy go in, click, and donate a cash donation, or they want to create a scholarship, and we can walk everybody through that every time. Okay, great. Thank you very much for having us, Mr. Secretary. Okay.
That's great. Yeah. You'll keep us posted, Dr. Gill?
Yes,
On how the campaign goes?
We will. Campaign will be ongoing.
Thank you.
I just want to thank Dr. Gill and Lauren and Patty and Jorge. They've done an incredible amount of work around this, and Scott Salado has been invaluable in helping us along with the videos, with the promotion, with the layouts of the materials. But as you know, that's such a wonderful night. When we give out our scholarships, and our community is amazingly responsive, and for such a small community that we are, we give about $300,000 in scholarships, and that's beyond what kids get from their colleges, just on college scholarships. So I know many students have been able to pay for the first year of college based on some of the scholarship money that they have received that night. And it's nice. We have a lot of young people that really, for 4 years, have dedicated themselves, not just academically, but to the music art program, to clubs, to activities, to sports. And these kids have given a lot and have improved our community as a result of that. And it's nice to reward them as they go out and show them that we appreciate their hard work. So they've done an amazing job.
Dr. Gill,
Yes.
you have said that in addition to these scholarships, the external one, some years is over $20.
The college scholarship, the ones that students get, yeah, it's well over 3 million. Probably they don't accept the full 3 million because they get multiple scholarship offers, multiple schools, but it's well over that. amazing. And this is all, like I said, this is all like community support.
Yeah.
So it's amazing that we were able to do. So we're trying to branch that out instead of just our community. Alumni is really the key group we want to see. So many alumni that have, moved on and moved into different parts of the world. We've got to reach out to them a little bit. We have a big social media campaign. After the mailing.
Oh, good.
Facebook, Twitter,
All of it.
Instagram,
Yeah.
Snap.
I gave you the 2-minute version of what would be a 2-hour presentation. What's that? I'm gonna wake up in about 4 hours. See you later.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you.
Any local business?
Good job. Thanks.
Any correspondence? No correspondence. Okay, now is the time that we come to public comment. If you like to speak, please come up and sign your name. Has anyone signed in? And seeing nobody coming forward, we move on to the tenure appointment. According to the provisions of Chapter 735 of the laws of 1974, as amended by Chapter 736, and upon the recommendation of the Superintendent of Schools, be resolved that the Board of Education grant tenure status to the following employee in the areas specified. Sarah Sorensen, Director of Special Services, effective 2/18/2018. The service is 3 years.
And seconded by the whole board.
Absolutely, second by the whole board.
Yep.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
Thank you. Thank you for letting us down. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Congratulations. How would you like to think of? Yes, National School Counseling Week.
National School Counseling Week, February 5th through the 9th, 2015. Whereas school counselors are employed in public service in private schools to help students reach their full potential. And whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents, these traits relate to career awareness and development. And whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society. And whereas comprehensive development school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school. Resolved that North Rockland Board of Education joins colleagues across the country in proclaiming February 5th through 9th, 2018 as School Counseling Week, and thanks our counselors for all they do for students.
Second by the whole board, please. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. We have amazing school counselors. We're blessed. Move on to the consent agenda. Use of the consent agenda permits the Board of Education to make more effective use of time by adopting a single motion to cover those relatively routine matters which are included. Any member of the board who wishes to discuss individually a particular piece of business on the consent agenda may so indicate, and that item will be transferred to the regular agenda for consideration and a separate vote, thus preserving the right of all board members to be heard on any issue. A motion, Mr. Fernandez, second by Mr. Masiello. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0. If anybody was appointed, if you could please stand up and introduce yourself and tell us where you'll be. No? Okay. Motion to close the meeting. Mr. Mazzillo, Mr. LaFever, discussion, all in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries 6-0.
No, thank you, I don't think so. What grade were you in? Second grade, I met Mrs. Brett. All them. She's okay. She just passed away. She was 92, she just died a couple weeks ago. Yeah, we're all set. Oh, 100 times, I'm sure she did you. That's why you lost the way to Brad.
night. Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. Coming. I'm trying to get my joints moving again. I know.
Yes. Good night. Oh, it's a baby one.
Let me try garbage.
This is many different names. This is for Carlos K.
You guys want me to put it in Ellen's office?
Yours.